This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto was turned into a girl by a goddess. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
The beginning of this story takes place in a bright area. 3 women with goddess-like bodies were able to make any man, gay or straight as a board, make all women envious, or cause a lesbian to bleed to death. They were discussing something that was really upsetting to them. The first was dressed in a brown and green kimono adorned with leaves. Her eyes were bright green, and her hair was long and brown. The second's skin was slightly paler than Tozi's, and her fingernails were sharp. Her hair was a mix of black and purple. She had 2 bangs that framed her face. Her face was shaped like a heart, but it had a harder appearance. She was dressed modestly but elegantly in a very royal, revealing black kimono. It only revealed a good portion of her legs and cleavage. A purple obi around her waist held the kimono tight in a lovely knot behind her as it flowed with her. Unlike the previous one, who appeared to have been born there, she didn't seem to belong there. Even in the white court, the third one's long, flowing silver hair seemed to glow. She had golden eyes that seemed to radiate strength and wisdom from within. Her skin was a pale porcelain that begged to be touched because it felt so soft and creamy to the touch. At the end of her white kimono were silver threads. Her clothes danced with floral designs. She was wearing plain wooden sandals at her feet and a black sash around her waist. Tozi, Shinny, and Meg were their names, in that order. Each of the 3 is incredibly beautiful. Orochi was the subject of their heated conversation. Like you know sisters, it is soon 5,000 years when we last had problem like this, and 500-year cycle has soon completed yet again its circle. Tozi replied. That is right, and question is what we are going to do about it. Shinny responded. That Orochi Teme is already making another person his 6th head, and this one is so much like him that it is disturbing. This person is giving me already tons of paperwork. Even their names are so similar. And what are we going to do about 2 girls? Lunar Priestess is placed in good family, which is greatly cared by Suku Chan, and she is showing great drive for arts. Suku Chan gave that family. Meg replied. She should be ready when heads come. Those arts are powerful, but only in human terms. Orochi has given powers for his heads that makes human arts quite meaningless. Girls would get troubles even if they got Susa Chan's sword of the gathering clouds of heaven. And it is not Lunar Priestess that I am so worried, but Solar Priestess. She is going to be born in one of the families of biggest emos and bigots that I have ever seen, and that clan is maybe worst in elemental countries. Only 2 person from that clan won't go in hell if they were killed right now. And although she will be close to Soma, this one is going to be so different with his morals and attitude he is going to get. And you know that this is inevitable. You've seen that with that family and those soul influences, even we couldn't prevent that. Anyway, they could be from different planes of the existence. One of the worst Orochi's heads, the 4th one, is from that clan, and with treatment that clan gives to girls. Orochi's servant needs only quickly stop there in order to get rid of her. Meg remarked, you are such a sunshine, Shinny. Sis. You always point dark side of things and say harsh things. But you know that everything that I say is true. As Tozi put it, true, but now we need to find a solution. Personally, I think we should give them powerful champion as a friend like Soma was years ago, and who could lead, protect and prepare them for what is going to happen. I agree, and I have already thought about that, and I have placed things in motion. Meg said with a grin. Like you already know, I gave birth first time since those times. Both sisters' eyes widened as they said, yes, we know, and what you were planning. No, sis, you didn't. Yes. I made about 9 months ago Trinity Parenthood ritual and gave my child's soul to other parents. While fighting with priestesses, my child can also bring world we have planned to create. My child should be soon born. Let us go to watch, shall we? They entered a room with a large circular mirror on the floor and white marble. 3 sisters watched side by side as Meg snapped her fingers and an image began to form in the mirror. Hello, Fire Country, no Kuni. Konoha, one of the 5 major shinobi villages in the land of fire. Konohagakure was a very wealthy village that was endowed with numerous strong clans, including the Sarutobi, Hyuga, Senju, and Uchiha, among others. After Mito Uzumaki, the wife of the Shodem Hokage Hashirama Senju, Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, was married to Kushina Uzumaki of the Uzumaki clan, who had a special chakra in the present-day Kyuubi container. Since Kushina was pregnant and the fox was the Jinchuriki, Minato said, "I'll be there for the birth, we have to take care of everything in the seal. I'll get everything prepared beforehand." The two spoke with Sarutobi Hiruzen the Sandaime Hokage and his wife Bawako. "This is what we did for Mito Sama as well. The seal nearly failed when she gave birth." Sarutobi made the point. "We'll need to prepare for the worst. We'll set up a place outside the village and erect a barrier to protect it. Only Minato, Bawako, and Anbutaji will be inside, and this must be kept the utmost secret. Outside will be Anbu under my command. I'll tell those where the place is, so get your things ready," said Bawako. With a nod, Kushina said, "Yes, thank you both." Later. Place of birth in labor pain. Kushina cried out, "Oh God, it hurrrrrrrts. I've never seen her in so much pain. Are you sure she'll be all right?" Minato asked, attempting to stabilize the seal by her side. "She's fine. Just keep your eyes on the seal." Bawako interrupted Minato as he was attempting to deliver the baby, saying, "But she's... Good lord, you're the Yandaime Hokage. Don't panic. This is why women have babies. Men can't handle the pain." Kushina writhed in agony as the Kyuubi attempted to break free, so Minato worked extra hard, saying, "Hang in there, Kushina. Hang in there, Naruto." That was the name they were going to give their son when they learned she was expecting. "It's so strong, I can feel the fox struggling to break free," he said, still concerned. Outside, an orange mask with black flame markings and a hole in the right eye was worn beneath the black cloak worn by the assassin, who killed the Anbu stationed outside the cave. He peered into the rock wall and surveyed the cave. Within, Bawako yelled, "The head's out, almost there, Kushina," as Kushina writhed in agony. Taji added, "Keep going. Kushina.san. Naruto, get out here, and Kyuubi, stay right where you are," Minato said, applying more force to the seal as the Kyuubi roared again. Naruto sobbed as he entered the world after Kushina gave him one last shove. Bawako commanded, "Get the hot water," and Taji complied. "It's over," Minato exhaled deeply, relieved. Kushina, who was panting and sweating profusely, looked at her newborn son wrapped in blankets. "Congratulations, it's a healthy baby boy," cheered Bawako. "Haha. Look at me, I'm a father," said the blonde man, wiping away some tears. "I finally get to meet you, Naruto," said the red-headed person with a smile. "Okay, Kushina, I know you're exhausted from birth, but we gotta get the Kyuubi completely sealed." Minato resumed his work, and his wife relaxed. "Right. Naga." Minato heard two screams and saw Bawako and Taji fall dead. "Bawako. Sama. Taji," he exclaimed as he turned to see the figure outside clutching his newborn son in his arms while his other hand hovered over his face. "Yandaime Hokage Minato. Back away from the Jinchuriki or your son dies at the ripe old age of 1 minute," he was threatening. Kushina writhed in agony again. "Kushina, the seal's not done." Minato stood on guard, asking, "How did he get through the barrier? Who is this guy?" The figure drew out a kunai and said, "Back away from the Jinchuriki or don't you care if your son dies?" Minato raised his hands and said, "Hold it, Jay. Just calm down." The figure laughed and said, "You should take your advice, Minato. I'm perfectly calm." He then threw Naruto into the air. Kushina exclaimed, "Naruto," as she saw her son in the air. Minato appeared on the wall holding his son before the figure killed the baby blonde. "You certainly live up to your name, the Yellow Flash. But what now?" the figure asked. "Minato. Naruto," screamed Kushina in horror as the Hokage swiftly removed the cloth from Naruto's blanket after discovering some tags on it. He flinched in pain as a piece of shrapnel got stuck in his leg, so he pulled it out and recovered his pronged kunai. "He's after Kushina. He forced me to use my Hirishin jutsu to separate us. Gotta hurry," Minato said as he rolled out of the smoke outside the building as it exploded, holding Naruto close to his chest. "You'll be safe here. You'll wait on your own for a little while, Naruto. I've got to save your mom before it's too late," he said, and hurried off to assist his wife. With 3 sisters, once more sisters were keeping an eye on everything that was going on. Kyuubi's birth, the attack, his appearance, and how the masked man coerced Kyuubi into attacking Konoha. They were unhappy with the outcome. From the moment of birth, Meg's plan was headed straight for the pits of hell. What does this mean, Meg? If he is like that, the balance and world that we are wishing for will not ever happen, even if he is your child, Tozy yelled. This must be because of soul influences and energies that were there. Those had to affect Trinity Parenthood ritual. We have to do something. Shinny remarked, it is getting worse. Minato knows that if Biju is destroyed, it will only reborn in few years, even if it were sealed in Lesser God's stomach. He has already summoned one of Shinigami's to make Naruto new Kyuubi *s Jinchuriki, and you know how Jinchuriki are treated. Especially if one's Biju has nearly destroyed the village they are living in. Those words made Meg pale, and she began to yell things like this in fear and rage. If they even sneer at my child, they will regret that they ever existed. At Konoha, unfortunately, no one heard the threat Meg yelled. They were aware that the Kyuubi was sealed but not killed. However, Sandaime Hokage and his student Toad Sanin Jiraiya rushed to the scene and saved the child before anyone could do anything. However, it was too late. Surprisingly, Fugaku Uchiha, the head of one clan, and the majority of the civilian council demanded his execution. Hiruzen's sudden outburst of killer intent, silenced them all. Anyone who mentioned the boy's status as a demon container would be publicly executed, according to a law passed by the reappointed Hokage. Fugaku and the civilian side attempted to protest, but more once again silenced them. Sarutobi chose not to disclose Naruto's ancestry because it would only exacerbate the situation, because Iwa was a threat, and if those who detested the child were naive enough to think he was a demon, they would probably reject his Yondaime ties regardless of the evidence. Word of the sealing has been spread by the few who have already seen the child. There were rumors that the child was either a reincarnation of the beast itself, or that the child was the Kyuubi in weakened form, something that should be injured in order to harm and punish Demon Fox. People grieved, rebuilt, and moved on during the week, and they called for the one-week-old child's death. Naruto Uzumaki, who was born without a mother or father and with a burden that had literally sealed his fate in hatred, was not going to have an easy life. Particularly because nobody wanted to take care of the child. Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was absolutely certain of that. After 6 years. Quit it, go away from me, was the boy with the blonde hair who was crying like a boy in the street at a time when everyone should have been asleep. His cries for forgiveness went unanswered because the attacks on him continued. The boy had golden hair and was 6 years old. He had 3 whisker marks on either side of his face and was only dressed in rags. His eyes were so pure blue that they resembled ocean waves. His body appeared to be severely malnourished, but among other things, there were wounds and injuries. Tears were streaming freely down his face, causing it to bleed. No, demon scum. You'll be held accountable. Feel your superior's pain. A drunk shinobi yelled as the young child was beaten and mistreated by both shinobi and civilians. Weapons, kunai, senbon, shuriken, and beer bottles were hurled at him. Naruto's terrified face was filled with tears as he ran through the streets of Konoha on her tiny legs. He is being pursued by hordes of shinobi and civilians alike, all of whom have murderous looks in their eyes and crazy smiles. Many carried a variety of weapons. Many were simply ecstatic about their ability to harm the demon. He slowed his pace as he ran around a corner to catch his breath, and tears and blood spilled onto the cement floor from his arms and legs. Why? Why him? He was the one who had to deal with this injustice. It was extremely painful for him to be alone with the Hokage as his only friend and a few kunoichis who weren't always able to assist him, without any parents to protect and keep him safe. His childlike voice was strained from all the agonizing screaming he had done due to the beatings he had received from the residents of the village where he lived. Why? What have I done? Why? He said. Hey, the demon is here. In this manner. His eyes widened in fear. Then he turned to face the fleeing crowd. He immediately turned around and ran as quickly as he could in the hopes that he would escape, receive assistance from a friendly Anbu, or avoid suffering serious injuries this time. Unfortunately, he was not lucky because his eyes snapped open in horror as he ran into Konoha's main street. Because he was surrounded by throngs of armed civilians and shinobi, all of whom had the same sick smile. As he looked back in the hopes of making his getaway, he realized that the pursuing mob had also surrounded him. He trembled a little and did the only thing he knew how to do or could do. That was to huddle on the ground in the hopes that the beating would stop. When he heard the giant mob's numerous advancing footsteps and their schemes to make him scream, tears came out of his eyes. He whimpered and huddled even more. Please, someone, please, help me, in his mental landscape. The Kyuubi no Kitsune gauge was in Naruto's sewer. Like Mindscape. He then observed the beatings his container received. Even he was depressed by the pleas he made, but he understood that this was what happened to people who became Jinchuriki even though it was never their choice. Giving chakra to his Uzumaki's regeneration ability was the only way to enable him to recover. In any case, this seal used his chakra to prevent his container from dying. Actually, a lot of Bijus wanted their containers dead so they could get away. Whether Shinigami bound him or not, Biju will change after a few years if he passes away. Bijus, which roam the elemental countries, are energy in the shape of enormous animals created by hatred. Bijus could only be eradicated from the world by putting an end to that hatred. It takes longer for longer. Sealed Bijus to roam freely. Additionally, hate gives Biju more power to control the host's thoughts. Ironically, those who despise Biju are hastening their return to the outside world by harming their host. Only Yondaime Hokage Minato and Uzumaki were aware of this. Kyuubi heard footsteps approaching while he was dozing off. He knew that even though his host was blacking out due to pain, he had not yet penetrated deeply enough into his mind to reach that level, so it wasn't his host. 3 people were present, as evidenced by the sound of footsteps. He slowly opened one eye to see who they were, and both of his eyes widened greatly upon seeing them. 3 women who he knew weren't typical mortals were standing in front of his gauge. Meg, Tozy, and Shinny were those 3 women. He sat down and began speaking to the 3 women in a kind voice, giving them his whole attention. It's great pleasure and honor for me to see you 3 here at the same time. Welcome to mine humble little home. With a very agitated tone, Meg said, "Cut it out, Kyuubi. You have never showed respect towards anybody except for Shinny, Chan in few occasions." He became much more serious when he realized that none of the 3 females were in the mood for play. He was careful not to irritate these sisters by playing around. He couldn't even afford that. "What you want from me? I know that Orochi's time is closing in and that is something that should take all your attention. It has to be something important for that you are here instead up there thinking ideas in order to stop him." This time, Shinny said, "In a way this thing concerns it." She then began to smile. "We're here because we have proposition for you. Would you like to get out of here? Get immunity towards genjutsus that can control you and have your summoning contract annulled? Only thing you would need to do is to take this child from this village unharmed and make his DNA so unstable that we can alter it for our liking." That piqued Kyuubi's curiosity. In addition to being able to leave, he was also able to obtain 2 things that he had always desired since being ruled by those god. Complex Uchihas. They needed to have a big idea and plans for this child because it was a good proposition for him. "You got mine interest. What this stupid brat could have so that you would help me so much?" Meg responded to that query. Not only he is important in coming battle but he is going to affect the entire world. Plus there is some personal matters. Look into my eyes and see a truth about him. Kyuubi observed Meg's luminous eyes and, via hypnosis, saw the 3 sisters' plans. He staggered back when he saw the boy's mission and heritage. Well, I did see something really strange in his soul, but to think it was something like this. It was something this big. That was huge surprise. After giving it some thought, Kyuubi finally responded, "All right. I swear to help you this much, but I also would like to give those villagers some peace of my mind and something they will not forget." Meg began to smile, but there was a hint of gloom that made Shinny proud of her sister. "Then I suggest we could put up Lil Act. This is what I would like you to do." Not long after leaving Naruto's mental realm, mobs decided it was time to end it when Naruto fainted and failed to scream. The majority of eager people had already removed kunais. Strong Ki, however, quickly surrounded the area, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, along with some of his ANBUs, including the Weasel. Masked Captain Itachi Uchiha and his team, arrived via Shunsen. Mobs blabbered and cowered in fear as Hiruzen watched in rage. "I see that you have been in quite a fun since you were not sleeping in this hour, but torturing innocent boy. Anbu. Take them to Ibiki and his apprentice Anko and say that they don't have to hold back anything. Weasel shall take Naruto to hospital immediately." "Hi," was their response. Unfortunately, one Uchiha's 2 Tomo's Sharingan allowed him to take control of himself. He stroked his chakra, strengthened Kunai in Naruto's stomach in the center of the seal, saying, "No, this time you won't save this and take glory of doing this divine act," before anyone could take any action. When Hokage and Anbu saw this, they went pale, and Uchiha's was embraced by crowds. Then something happened that made the mobs even paler than Hokage and the late saviors of the boys even paler. The seal began to glow crimson red, the kanjis began to fade, and large amounts of red yuki began to emerge from the wound. In an instant, Hiruzen was by Naruto's side when he began to tremble on the ground. The boy was held by a couple of Anbu, who then flipped him onto his back. Hiruzen realized that Kyuubi was written all over whatever was harming his grandson. When Hokage lifted Naruto's shirt to reveal his seal, he saw that Kyuubi was pressing against it, seemingly in an attempt to escape. Hiruzen swiftly wrote out a sutra for suppression and slapped it on Naruto's stomach after grabbing an ink brush and some ink. The Biju's chakra gradually faded back into the seal, making it impossible for anyone to sense anything. He sat back with a sigh of relief that he had time to thwart the Kyuubi's plans. Many others released the breaths they had been holding. The sutra that Hokage had placed on the seal was suddenly overrun by the Kyuubi's chakra, which exploded so violently that all of them were flung back into a building when he attempted to contain it. Sarutobi's only thought as he lay against a wall with a massive bump on his head was that he hoped his grandson would survive whatever happened. Everyone's blood froze when their senses returned. A 60-meter tall mass of Yuki in the shape of a 9-tailed fox stood in front of them, and Naruto was still unconscious with one tail still attached. Kyuubi began to laugh after flexing its Yuki legs. "I am free. After so many years I am finally free. In your face Uzumakis and Yondaime, ha ha ha." Some Uchihas, like the one that stabbed Naruto, were dying at the hands of Kyuubi, and people were paralyzed by fear and unable to move. Only a few Anbu were in combat position, waiting for reinforcements to arrive based on the malevolent impression Kyuubi's Yuki conveyed. In order to seal Kyuubi once more in Naruto, who didn't appear to be dead yet, Hokage was learning the hand signals for Shiki Fuin. How it can be out? A general public asked. Kyuubi was just sealed in form of child. Kyuubi and that child are same being. When Kyuubi heard this and turned to face the civilian, he nearly passed out. "I and that child are one and same, you say? Ha ha, just how stupid you can get? You don't know difference sword and sheath. Would I let you beat me and cry because some pain? I slept through most beatings because I didn't feel a thing unlike my host. I am pure energy, and one of the basics of physics is that energy can't be destroyed. Even child knows that. You are so weak and stupid that I don't know why I speak same language as you." "It doesn't matter," exclaimed four Uchihas who were looking directly at Kyuubi. 3 out of 8 Sharingans began to spin after the words, "By the power of the Sharingan we order you to be pet of the Uchihas," could be heard. However, they were horrified to see that Kyuubi merely chuckled before bursting into a full-fledged giggle. "What bakas, fools, are you? Even before sealing only Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, 5th form of Sharingan, could affect me at all, and even then it had to be specialized one. Even if 1000 Mangekyos would stare at me I would only get a headache. Plus when I was in seal I experimented and modified my eyes so that not a single genjutsu in this world could affect me. Now even Uchiha Madara can't control me. Days of me being controlled are completely over. And now I take my revenge on Uchihas that have twice controlled me." Suddenly he plunged forward and swallowed all 4 Uchihas in one bite and started digest them in his stomach. It wasn't finished yet. He began by forming a large ball out of his Yuki by bringing his tails forward in front of his open mouth. After swallowing the ball, he leapt far above Konoha, leaving Naruto unconscious and still trapped in one tail. While still in the air, Kyuubi yelled, "Tailed Beast Bomb," and sent a massive energy blast in the direction of the Uchiha clan's compound. The entire compound was engulfed in a massive crater by the ensuing explosion. Kyuubi then landed exactly where he had leapt. After hearing this, Itachi knelt down and hoped that his mother Makoto and younger sister Himeko had spent the night at their friend's house and that his brother Sasuke had not gone into the compound to sleep after his late training. "I made my chakra extra corrosive so that there shall not be single survivor left. When I attacked those years ago I didn't use my full power. Later, when he saw that they had, He nearly leapt with delight. Kyuubi began to speak for others. With the words, "I should erase this village from map," shinobi armed themselves. "But I am not yet in full power and fully out of that kit, and I don't like to be out here any longer than is necessary. I shall take my leave and take this kid with me so that I can pull out all of my powers. Hope we don't see again, and I will erase this village if any Konoha shinobi crosses his paths with me. Goodbye, hopefully forever." Hiruzen yelled, "Wait," but it was too late. With Naruto still stuck in his tail, Kyuubi leapt out of the village and disappeared in the direction of the south. Naruto. In the morning, when everything came into focus, Naruto opened his eyes and looked around. What happened? He asked himself, but then something clicked and he saw a flashback of the most severe beating he had yet to experience. He thought, "I should be dead." He rubbed his forehead and asked himself, "How am I alive? They stabbed me so many times." Two objects jiggled as his hand struck something in his chest as he brought it down. Bow. Yoing. Before bringing his hands to his chest, which were now for his horror breasts, he thought. "Those are there," he said, lowering his hands beneath his belt. "It's not there," he nearly yelled now. She was him. Naruto surveyed her surroundings. She was in the center of a large flower meadow, with a stream passing a few yards away. She didn't sound like herself because of how high her voice was. She examined himself by looking down. She frantically yelled, "What the fuck is going on?" as she looked over his entire body, noticing his slender, feminine arms and more attractively manicured hands. He had a flat, toned stomach, a longer, thinner face, large breasts for a 6-year-old, long, slender legs that were concealed by his baggy pants, and long, flowing blonde hair. He would have been captivated if it hadn't been her own body. "Could somebody please tell what is going and where in hell am I?" When two noble-looking people, fortunately both female, entered the clearing after hearing her yelling, she would quickly receive an answer to her first question even though she was unable to get one for the first one. They belonged to the only bloodline holding clan in the entire Tsuki no Kuni, Land of Moon, and were the most highly regarded clan. They belonged to the Himemiya clan and were from Kajimaitan, Mirror Release. At the Hokage's office in Konoha, Sarutobi Hiruzen completely ignored the pile of papers on the desk behind him as he smoked his pipe while standing at his office window. He genuinely detested that aspect of his work, and he was even more irate that he still hadn't found a suitable replacement, which would have allowed him to be free of this shit indefinitely. However, regrettably, the village's situation hasn't improved since Kyuubi's escape and the Yondaimi's death. Another rift was created within the clan after Kumo attempted to kidnap Hyuga Hiyoshi's daughter, which would have led to his brother giving his life for the sake of the clan. However, the branch house didn't see it that way. After that, Kyuubi destroyed the Uchiha clan, leaving only 3 members, Uchiha Makoto, Uchiha Himeko, and Uchiha Sasuke, to survive. Somehow, Uchiha Itachi left Konoha shortly after Uchiha was destroyed and turned into an S-rank missing. Nin. Itachi told Hiruzen that he left to protect Konoha from a dangerous person he met in a spy organization, that this person leads from the shadows, despite the official statement that he left because Konoha could no longer challenge him. Itachi threatened to expose Uchiha's betrayal in public if his siblings learned the true reason for his departure or were placed in danger. Sasuke was inspired to try his strength by surpassing and killing him one day, even though Itachi's departure devastated her mother and sister. After Kyuubi killed his clan, the poor boy had woken up and drowned in his inner darkness. One day, he wanted to exact revenge on it and figure out how to destroy Kyuubi in some way. He vowed to wipe out all living Bijus as part of his hate and thirst for vengeance. Hiruzen was certain that he would spend his entire life seeking retribution because that mission was so challenging. Thankfully, his sister Himeko was far kinder and reminded of her mother as much as Sasuke did of their father. Many questioned her ancestry because she was so different from the other Uchiha. Particularly after learning that she would never be able to acquire Uchiha's Sharingan or even have a child who might inherit it. Sasuke is now solely responsible for bringing Sharingan back to life in Konoha. She had a dream about finding Itachi and learning the truth about his departure after he left. Unfortunately, Makoto passed away from illness when her youngest child was 9 years old, so she was unable to raise her kids for very long. Himeko had sobbed all day in her mother's deathbed, but Sasuke was training at the time of his mother's passing and, in spite of her sister's entreaties, was not present when her mother passed away. Foster families would have taken them in, but Sasuke's arrogance and obstinacy made him and her sister live alone in the Uchiha compounds. When Sasuke forced his sister to live a miserable life, Hiruzen was disgusted by him and couldn't comprehend why the council worshipped him and permitted him to do so. Danzo persuaded the council to permit the reactivation of his root division shortly after the Uchihas were destroyed, claiming that it was essential now that all military polices had been eliminated because they had all been Uchihas. Hiruzen made an unsuccessful attempt to overrule them, and as a result, Danzo has drawn some talented young people who have graduated from the academy to join his ranks. The village of Konoha had been in shock and grief for the 4 years following Kyuubi's escape. The shinobi population was the most obvious example of this, as civilians were still not convinced by what Kyuubi had told them and what they had witnessed that day. The majority of the shinobi fell into a depressive state. Those who had attacked Naruto, believing they were taking revenge on Minato, now wept over their actions against the defenseless boy. It took them a year to get over the embarrassment. After the attack in the morning, the Sandaime Hokage's law regarding Naruto was revoked. All of the younger generations were now aware that Naruto was a Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The younger generation's reaction to the news had been mixed. Some had adopted their parents' viewpoint, considering Naruto to be the demon disguised as a human. The older generation's perception of Naruto was not shared by others, who at least knew him in some capacity. Instead, they saw him as someone who received unfair treatment from the village. Since they had seen the boy numerous times and he had done nothing wrong except play practical jokes, most still did not know how to feel about him. However, he carried within him the Kyuubi, the demon that had nearly destroyed their village and killed nearly every member of the Uchiha clan. The search for and recovery of the missing Uzumaki Naruto followed, which has been Sandaime's personal goal for the previous 7 years. Finding the child and bringing him home was all that mattered to him. Sadly, it appeared very likely that Kyuubi had eaten Naruto, and because he had paid attention to what Kyuubi had said, he was unable to seek information from Kyuubi itself, who had vanished in the mountains of the Western Elemental Nations. There was one positive outcome from that evening. He had heard from Jiraiya's spy network that when Kyuubi's statements were made public, Jinchurikis began to receive better treatment and a better quality of life. That was a beginning, but nobody believed it. Even though Danzo has attempted to strengthen Fire Country at the expense of relations with other nations and force Konoha to increase its military might in the same manner that Kumo does whenever possible, Hiruzen and the current Fire Daimyo have been successful in improving Konoha's relations with other nations during these years. Moon Country and its Getsukager no Sato, Hidden Moon Village, saw the biggest improvement. In fact, it got so much better that the Getsukager leader sent her only child, Himemiya Chikane, the heiress of the Himemiya clan and the best prodigy to be seen in that clan for decades, to Konoha to learn how to be a shinobi. She is unquestionably the best kunoichi there and belongs to the same class as many clan heirs. Though her specialty is in her clan's jutsus, she is intelligent, quite athletic, kind, respectful, and possibly the most beautiful girl in her class. She is also talented in every aspect of ninja. Sandaime was certain that Sasuke would lose quickly if they went all out, and Chikane was permitted to use her Kyotone, mirror release, bloodline. However, the council is very traditional and believes that girls shouldn't be named Rookie of the Year. As an alternative, she was named Kunoichi of the Year. Fortunately, she didn't mind that she wasn't named Rookie of the Year. At this point in the semester, general exams are scheduled for a few months from now. A few days ago, Sandaime received a letter from the leader of Getsukager stating that she would be sending 3 girls from her village to attend Konoha and receive an education in Chikane's class. She clarified that the blonde in the group she sends is an orphan from Konoha who somehow found their way to Moon Country and became a servant after being discovered by the Himemiya clan. In addition to possessing 2 previously unheard of bloodline limits, she is extremely talented in ninjutsu. In order for her to reach her full potential, which cannot be taught in Getsukager, she was sent to Konoha. 2 additional girls belonged to 2 distinct Mitsuaki clan branches. The Mitsuaki clan resides in River Country, which is situated between Fire Country and Wind Country. Due to the country's location, it has always been necessary to maintain positive relations with 2 powerful nations. For many years, Mitsuaki has sent 2 of its branches to work for 2 daimyos. While the main branch remains in River Country, those 2 branches, known as the Heaven and Earth branches, are sent to serve the Fire and Wind daimyos, respectively. Depending on the route their bloodline limit takes, clan members are split up among these branches. All Mitsuakas have a preference for wind and water from birth, and as they get older, they develop a third affinity in the capacity to combine all three affinities to create a tri-element. Bloodline limit. You gain Ueziton, weather release, and move to the Heaven branch if your third affinity is lightning, and you move to the Earth branch if it's earth. Not a single member of Mitsuaki has ever served in the ranks of Konoha, despite the fact that its Heaven branch serves Fire Daimyo and many of its members join the 12 Ninja Guardians. According to the Getsukager leader, those two girls are not formally members of the Mitsuaki clan. Rather, they are former slaves who were rescued from slavery by the blonde girl, which is how they were able to join Ninja Village. They left right away with the blonde girl when she announced that she would be joining Konoha. As Sandaime read the entire letter, he could already see how the council members would welcome girls with open arms when they learned about the arrival of Ueziton, Ititan, and two distinct bloodline limits in the village. In order to keep the girls in Konoha and allow the village to have its bloodline limits, Sandaime will provide news about the days following the girls' arrival so that the girls can stroll around the village for a short while before receiving wedding proposals from various clans. Since the first day she entered the village, Chikane has received a ton of suggestions every day. When Getsukager's leader wrote that blonde dual bloodline limit holder believes she was once a boy, Sandaime assumed she was kidding. Letter girls are expected to arrive today. Sandaime was trying to shake off his thoughts so that he could complete his paperwork before more arrived. But then he began to hear some rumbling, and as he looked out the window, he noticed smoke and fire coming from some woods a short distance outside the village's walls. As a veteran of the Third Shinobi World War, Sandaime understood the significance of that sound and sight. There was a major conflict. Then he reminded himself that those three Moon Country girls were supposed to arrive today. There could be bad news for the two countries' relations if one of the fighting sides had a caravan from Moon Country. He needed to get things done fast. "Neko!" he exclaimed, and Anbu shunshined in front of the Hokage's desk while wearing a katma. "Get your group and find out what is going on out there. If it's fighting, stop it immediately and try find survivors. I think one of the fighting sides is caravan from Moon Country, so if you must battle, choose their side. Hurry up." Anbu responded in a feminine voice, identifying herself as a woman. "Hi." A short distance from Konoha, Naruki, a blonde girl, was terrified and perplexed by what was going on around her. Her clothing was ripped to pieces, and she had several wounds and bruises all over her body. She suffered a wound just above her eyes, which caused blood to splatter and obscure her vision. Her two closest friends and former slaves from the Mitsuaki clan, Yamaneko and Aya, were just a few meters to her left, both unconscious and severely injured. Aya is a girl with shoulder-length hair, brown eyes, and breasts that are fairly large for her age, though they are a little smaller than Naruki's, and a cute teen body that is slightly shorter than Naruki's. Despite being the same age as Aya and Naruki, Yamaneko, also known as Yane Chan, is noticeably taller than the other two. She has red eyes and red hair that reaches her waist. She is typically assumed to be Aya's older sister because she has the largest breasts in the group and a body that could fit a 17-year-old. Even with blood in her eyes, she could see that the area was encircled by dead bodies and wrecked carriages. The majority of his people were immediately killed in the devastating attack. She discovered a dead Himemiya clan member who had 5 kunais stuck in her body. The girl could only watch her caregivers being killed in front of her, and tears were streaming from her eyes. When she attempted to recall her name, she experienced her next horror. She was unable to. She made an effort to recall what she could recall. She was aware that she was born in Konoha and that she had once been a boy, but she was unable to recall her boy's name, who had helped her, or other details. She could recall being beaten by villagers, but she couldn't pinpoint why, and while she had some recollections of her time in Moon Country, she couldn't recall anything about being a girl. When she was discovered in Moon Country all those years ago, her mental state was exactly the same. From behind her, she heard a strange male voice say, "Looks like I erased great amount of memories from your head. I would have erased more, but thanks to your bloodline. Oh well. That was a good start." She turned around and saw a large male figure with long, shoulder-length hair, noble-looking clothing, and a noble voice, even though she was unable to see much because of the blood in her eyes. All he did was hold his smoking right hand while glancing at Naruki. Those two girls were very lucky. If they would be little further away from you and if you wouldn't still hold little amount of protecting power that you got from your mother, Naruki gasped loudly for this. She remembered that she has always been orphaned since her birth. What was he talking about? I would have killed them and you. I can't harm you more and Konoha's Anbu is coming. I could easily kill them, but it would be a waste. I shall leave you out of hook for now and wait few months so that power that protects you from me could lift off. After saying that, he knelt down to face Naruki, who was so terrified that she was unable to see his face because of the blood in her eyes. I am second head of the 8 great Orochi's heads. I know that you will oppose us no matter what I say and figure out some arguments towards my goals even though it is for to erase all suffering in this world. Pity, but you can't stop us in one day, you will die by our hands if you try to face us. Goodbye for now, her daughter Naruki. He then disappeared. He didn't employ Shunshin or any similar technique. He simply disappeared. That is the only word for it. The Anbu squad arrived a few seconds later. With her last remaining energy, Naruki exclaimed, "Hey, there are survivors," before collapsing. Later, at the hospital in Konoha when she woke up the following morning, Naruki moaned inside, thinking, "I've always hated to be in the hospital, but maybe here can be said how I became a girl and how can I turn in boy again." As she waited for someone to check on her or something, she let out a long sigh, sank deeper into the bed's pillows, and relaxed. Sarutobi lay there for about an hour before his room's door opened, and he entered and shut it behind him. Naruki grinned at Sarutobi and pushed up onto his hands. Hearing that, Hiruzen scowled and asked, "So you are old man Hokage?" This girl treated the authorities with the same disdain that Naruto once did. He sat on the chair beside the bed and said, "Yes, I am the village's Lord Hokage. Now, I'd like to hear what happened there when you were attacked." Naruki recounted everything she could recall, including her memory loss, the second head of the Orochi, his words, and how she was unable to fully describe him due to his bloody nature. Fortunately, there was no nationwide incident after Getsukager was notified of the situation. Although it was unfortunate that they were not given a description, the name, second head of the Orochi, was rather unusual. Perhaps it was a code name of some sort. B-rank nuke.nin will appear in the bingo book. After recounting everything she could recall, she asked herself the two most crucial questions she had been wondering about. She sat up and asked excitedly, "Where are my friends and when am I going to be back to Guy?" This was going to be awful. Sarutobi sighed. "Naruki, your friends are fine, but they have to sleep a couple of days before they can heal completely. As for your condition, I'm not entirely sure how to say this to you, but we've run every test we can, blood tests, DNA, everything. You're 100% female, inside and out." He was pleased to hear that she cared about her friends, but she made it clear that the leader of Getsukager wasn't kidding. Naruki's eyes widened, but she simply put her head back in the pillow and began to think. It now appeared that she would have to live the rest of her life as a girl and learn how to be one. Her mental state, which is still a boy's state, was the biggest issue in that situation. At last, she spoke once more. "This sucks completely. I have still boy's mind and I still look girls with eyes of boy. That must mean that I'm lesbian now. Only way I now can pass mine Keke Genkes is to either to marry B. Forget it. I can't even say that. Now only way is to find a way to impregnate myself with sealing of some sorts." Sarutobi believed she handled news quite well. If his life turned upside down and the same thing happened to him, he couldn't even imagine what he would do. Her declaration that she is a lesbian will undoubtedly cause problems in the future. Because he liked reading about lesbians in Jiraiya's Icha Icha books and because he knew some nice lesbians, he wouldn't mind reading about gay sexuality. The issue would be the council's refusal to accept people of different sexual orientations, particularly if they have strong bloodline restrictions. That made him think of a question he had been meaning to ask. "You talked about your Keke Genkes. I have meant to ask about this, so would you mind tell me about those?" Naruki sighed again and started to tell, "My two Keke Genkes are chakra and mind based and I call those mind style and chakra style. Mind style lets me to do what Yamanakas can do and much more. I can infiltrate in mind, read it, make them to sense things that I want them to sense. It is my style of genjutsu. I can also use telepathy, psychokinesis, which lets me move objects with my mind." She demonstrated by pointing towards window and it opened by itself. I can teleport things, although I can't yet to do it for living things, and project some kind of my astral self to other place. Those are things that I right now know what I can do with mind style. Chakra style lets me do things with chakra that can't be done normally. I can create swords, shields, whips, kunais. I can absorb lower class ninjutsu. But greatest advantage of this Kekkei Genkai is that although I don't have sage training, it automatically absorbs a little bit of nature's chakra so that I will never tire out and I can't die for chakra exhaustion. Chakra style Kekkei Genkai has one drawback. I am completely unable to use any element-based jutsus. That is basically power of mind that I have discovered so far. After a prolonged period of wide-eyed staring, Sarutobi let out another sigh. Because she dislikes boys, the council would never allow those two powers, which have so much potential, to fade away. For anyone who had Junior between their legs, they would force her to whore herself. This is quite a problem. You look like smart girl and you might know that council won't let you be lesbian when they hear about this and will make you pregnant with their boys without considering your own free will. Naruki did not respond. This was what she had expected to happen. With a great deal of resolve in her voice, she stated, "Looks like my only option is to figure out way to create medical seal which lets women impregnate other women." Hiruzen became fond of this girl. She is devoted to her friends, tenacious, and willing to put in the effort necessary to develop her strength. She also keeps her abilities modest. At last he got up to speak to Naruki. "Don't you think for a second you're going to go through this alone, Naruki? I'm going to get some girls to teach you everything you need to know, and I'll always be around to help you. I think we could let your Kekkei Genkais be a secret until you are settled in Konoha and accepted that you are female now." She responded, "It does sound like the best thing to do. I'm sorry, Naruki, but I have to go. I have to get those that will help you. I'll be back later, okay?" Sarutobi said as he began to move toward the door. Naruki simply nodded and began to gaze out the window. In the office of the Hokages, when Sarutobi got to his office, he buzzed for his secretary right away. She said, "Hi Hokage. Sama? Please get me Himemiya Chikane, Yamanaka Ino and Shiwan Yoruichi and have them come to my office. I've got a mission for them." He asked. Over the intercom, "Hi Hokage. Sama," was heard. After a half hour, Chikane, Yoruichi, and Ino were standing in his office, utterly perplexed as to why they alone had been asked. Chikane is a girl with dark blue hair that reaches her waist, blue eyes, and an aristocratic appearance. She is dressed in a red moon patterned kimono. Ino Yamanaka's blue eyes and long blonde hair, which is always worn in a ponytail with bangs covering the right side of her face, along with a pair of tiny, silver hoop earrings, are her most striking features. She has bandages on her legs and stomach, a skirt with the sides cut off, and a short purple blouse that resembles a vest with a raised collar. She accessorizes this with white and purple elbow warmers and a headband that she wears around her waist as a belt. A woman of average height, Yoruichi Shiwan is slender, dark-skinned, and has golden eyes and long purple hair that she wears in a ponytail. She typically wears a black sleeveless undershirt with no sleeves, a black stretch pant, a pair of light brown shoes, and an orange overshirt with two white straps on each shoulder. She also wears a big beige sash around her waist. She also sports long, beige leg and wrist warmers that are fastened with bands. Sarutobi said, "Thank you all for coming so fast. I have a special task for the three of you." "What would you have us do, Hokage? Sama?" Yoruichi asked, nodding. Sarutobi exhaled. "We have a new addition to Konoha's kunoichis. I can see great potential in her and she has dual Kekkei Genkai. But she needs your help." The question, "Our help with what?" was raised by Ino. Sarutobi let out a sigh. With being a girl, Yoruichi's and Ino's eyes widened in shock and bewilderment. Ino questioned, "Huh? What do you mean?" But Chikane understood. "You're talking about Naruki, don't you, Hokage? Sama? So she did came here after all." Sarutobi let out another sigh. That was a common occurrence these days. "I didn't expect that to make sense for any of you except for you, Chikane. Follow me, I think you'll understand much better once you meet her. She's in the hospital for the moment." Following Sarutobi to the hospital and the room where the girl was staying, Yoruichi, Chikane, and Ino bowed. When they reached room 223, they opened the door. Naruki was lying there in the hospital bed. Sitting up, Naruki exclaimed, "Shikane. Chan, it is so good to see familiar face again," with joy. "Good to see you," to Naruki. "Looks like you have to stay in the ranks of the fairer sex. How do you feel and how are Aya? Chan and Yane?" "Chan? Don't tell me they." "Don't worry. Aya and Yane are just unconscious and shall wake up after few days and I am fine. You know that I have great healing factor." Yoruichi and Ino were perplexed. They questioned, "What are they talking about, Hokage? Sama?" And Hiruzen informed them of everything he and Naruki had discussed. Naruki scratched her head sheepishly as Chikane moaned, "Oh great. I remember when you were first brought to us and we had to teach you about being girl. It was quite a mess. Now you are telling me that starts yet again." Yoruichi's and Ino's jaws fell. Yoruichi questioned, "And you want us to teach him everything about being a girl?" "Yes," said Sarutobi, nodding. "She has 15 years of knowledge to catch up on." "How this can be possible? Oh right, you don't know, so where should we begin then?" Ino asked Sarutobi as she stood there and watched. Sarutobi gave a meaningless shrug. "Do I look like a girl to you? He needs to know everything about being a girl, and I mean everything. You guys are in for a long 2 weeks. Yoruichi, would you mind if Naruto stays at your place for a while as well? I think it would be extremely beneficial for him. I mean her. To have a woman around to ask questions." Yoruichi sighed. "I guess that's alright. I have a spare guest room she could use until she graduates from academy. I think she will be placed there." Sarutobi nodded. "She remembers her ninja training, so she shall be placed in Shikane's and Ino's class after few days along with Aya and Yamaneko when they awake." For a few minutes after Sarutobi left, Ino and Kurenai simply stared at Naruki, unsure of how to begin the conversation. When the silence became awkward, Ino became irate. Yoruichi and Shikane started laughing, which made Naruto smile. "I hate you, Naruki. You're a boy and you've got bigger boobs than I do. Before Chikane arrived I hold the greatest bust in our class. This is not fair," I said. Ino. Chan started crying when Chikane said, "I should warn you then, Ino. Chan, that Aya. Chan has same class breasts and Yamaneko has even greater bust than 3 of us." After many hours, Naruki sat in bed with a terrified expression on her face and the sheet pulled close to her. She was just getting ready to go to her house with Yoruichi, while Ino and Chikane had just returned home. Naruki was frightened and ill by some of the things she learned from those two. As Yoruichi put on her hospital clothes, Naruki said, "I can't believe all of the things you have to go through. Guys have it so easy compared to you guys." They would have to wait until tomorrow, when they were hauling her sorry ass across the village on a shopping spree. Yoruichi showed Naruki her room when they got to her apartment. It was a typical guest room with tan carpeting, white walls, a dresser, a lamp, and a closet. "I'll get you a futon set up in just a minute, Naruki. Do you want some of my clothes to sleep in? I think I have some things that might fit you." "Thank you for doing all of this for me, Yoruichi-san. I know you didn't have to do any of this," Naruki said with a nod and a deep bow. "It's okay, Naruki. I can't imagine how this must be for you. I'll do everything I can to help you." Yoruichi grinned and surprised Naruki by putting her arms around her and giving her a tight hug. She then swiftly left the room to get everything for her. She later gave some of her old clothes to Naruki. With a nod, Naruki accepted Yoruichi's clothing and said, "Thank you again, Yoruichi, and good night." "Good night, Naruki. I'll see you tomorrow," Yoruichi said with another smile before slinking out of Naruki's room and clicking the door behind her. Although she kept her black and orange boxers on because they were the only underwear she owned, Naruki swiftly threw off her ragged clothes and changed into the ones Yoruichi had given him. Yoruichi wasn't lying. "These are a little big, but they're really comfy." She was dressed simply but comfortably in a deep red shirt that was too big for her mid-thigh and loose pink pajama bottoms. After shutting off the dresser's lamp, Naruki slipped into the futon that Yoruichi had so graciously prepared for her. The following morning, Naruki awoke to the sun shining through her room's window, warming her face. She yawned, got out of her futon, and stretched. Then she hurried out of the room, and to her surprise, Yoruichi was already in the kitchen. "Good morning, Naruki. Did you sleep well?" she inquired. Naruki replied, "Yeah, Yoruichi. Do you mind if I use your shower? I'm not exactly sparkling clean." Yoruichi nodded and gave a little giggle. Sure Naruki, go ahead. With a nod, Naruki made his way to Yoruichi's restroom. Nice job, Naruki. Now, why don't you go get dressed? Ino's is coming over soon for us to go shopping, Yoruichi grinned when she was done. Shopping? With Ino? Why Chikane can't come? Naruki asked, rapidly going pale. Yoruichi laughed. Yes, we need to get you some new clothes, now hurry up. I put some clothes in your room that you can use for now. Chikane has some clans things to do. With a sigh, Naruto went to his room to change. When Yoruichi answered the door 10 minutes later, she saw Ino standing there. Ah, Ino-san. Good morning. Naruki is still getting dressed. She'll be out in a couple minutes, she said. After 2 minutes, Naruki emerged from her room, dressed in a basic white t-shirt that flaunted her features, blue shorts, and black shinobi sandals. So, what are we getting first? Asked Naruki, nodding. Ino grinned back at Yoruichi's evil smile, and Yoruichi said, bras and panties. Naruki's gaze expanded. You expect me to wear that stuff? At Naruki, Ino wrinkled her nose. Well, you sure as hell aren't going to keep wearing boxers. The market district of Konoha. After much wriggling on Naruki's part, Yoruichi and Ino pulled him through the village until they reached the store. Alright, before we do anything, we need to figure out all of your sizes, Naruki. Waistline, height, cup size, everything. Nauseous, Naruki asked, my what size? Yoruichi let out a sigh. After nodding and briefly vanishing, Ino returned with a cloth tape measure and gave it to Yoruichi. Your cup size, Naruki, as in, the size of your breasts. I'm guessing you're a C. Cup, but we need to be sure. Ino, would you grab me one of the tape measures please? Yoruichi swiftly flew all over Naruki, taking measurements and mentally recording them. By the time she was finished, Naruki was unsure of what had happened. Now hold still, Naruki, and this will only take a second. She confessed, I feel violated. This made Ino outside start laughing. I felt the same way the first time, Naruki. Looks like nice high C cups. Yoruichi replied. When Ino heard that, a black cloud of rain appeared over her head, considerably bigger than mine. Ino and Yoruichi vanished into the store to find items for Naruki after Yoruichi abruptly grabbed Ino's wrist. Naruki sighed and said, I have a bad feeling about this. A few seconds later, both girls returned with numerous bra and pant sets, which they threw into Naruki's arms as he stared at them in confusion. What the hell am I supposed to do with all of these? She responded. Ino let out a sigh. Try them on, of course, see which ones you like most. After sighing as she surveyed the stack of underwear in her arms, Naruki entered the dressing room, shut the door, and Ino went into the store. As soon as Ino returned, the argument began. As Ino gave the blonde a few styles to try on, Naruki protested, why'd I have to wear a bra? As soon as the girls began discussing bras and underwear, and Naruki made remarks like, doesn't that hurt wearing that? Or, where's the rest of it? People who had been outside hurried inside. Ino was told by Yoruichi, I'd suggest sports bras. When she saw the lace underwear, she remarked, Naruki's too active to wear those flimsy things. But what about when she's not on a mission or training? Ino inquired. I'm sure Naruki won't wear the same clothes all the time. Naruki remarked, I have before. Since we're getting you a whole new wardrobe, we're building you a proper closet full. Yoruichi replied. Ino went and returned with multiple pairs of orange bras and underwear after noticing the adorable pout. Here, you can wear these under those dark clothes we picked out. After hearing Naruki growl, stupid ass bra. A minute or so later, Yoruichi sighed. Naruki, are you having any trouble? She asked, gently knocking on the door as she approached it. With a sigh, Naruki said, I can't put this stupid bra on, and this feels so wrong. Could you help me? Yoruichi slipped into the dressing room after slowly turning the doorknob. Naruki was standing off to one side, fumbling with the bra clasp while wearing black underwear. Yoruichi came forward and helped her hook the bra together. There you go. You look nice, Naruki. With a shudder, Naruki crossed her arms over her chest. I feel dirty. My mind is screaming how wrong this is, but I know I have no choice. Yoruichi let out a sigh. In Konoha, it was happening frequently. You'll get used to it before long, Naruki. You have a lot of things to adjust to. You sound like my apprentice Soi Fong after I left Anbu. I know it's stressful, but Ino, Shikane and I and your friends after they get out of the hospital are here to help. With Yoruichi assisting her with the bras, Naruki nodded and proceeded to try on additional sets of bras and underwear. Since he didn't intend for anyone to ever see him naked, Naruki ultimately selected the sets he liked best. She selected 2 sets of matching black panties and bras, 3 sets of orange ones with similar designs, and 2 sets of white ones that Yoruichi wouldn't let her have since she insisted that white looked fantastic on her. Naruki was relieved that Sarutobi was covering the cost of this for him after Yoruichi and Ino proceeded to drag him around the stores and buy him more clothes than he ever imagined wearing. Shikane later accompanied them when they went out to eat dinner. Naruki gradually came to terms with her gender identity and began to like some Konoha residents, such as Ichiraku's, whom she liked almost right away after trying their ramen. It began to feel like home in Konoha. Naruki was about to leave, thinking about the conversation he would have with 2 Mitsuaki girls, when the Konoha hospital nurse woke up the 2 older girls and informed them that they had guests. As they waited to welcome their unidentified guests, Aya and Yamaneko slowly sat up in their beds and shook their heads to clear away any last bits of cobwebs. When Naruki and Shikane entered, they were taken aback. They were thrilled to see their best friends, and they greeted their guests with a smile from Aya and a smirk from Yamaneko. Shikane and Naruki went to the gurney to see how the girls were doing. When asked if they remembered anything from the attack, they replied in the same way that they had told Anbu when they were questioned after they had woken up. They only recalled that the assailant was a tall, noble-looking man with long black hair and light-based attacks because they had been in shock from the unexpected attack. Before it could reach Naruki, the bright beam of light he had aimed at him burst into a brilliant flash, but the shockwaves sent them hurtling. They didn't wake up until they were in the hospital after hitting their head while falling. Shikane exclaims joyfully, "Hey Aya! Chan and Yama! Chan, you look to be in good spirits." Naruki says, flashing her occasionally seen smile, "Yeah, you too, you do look much better than the last time we saw you." With joy in her voice, Yamaneko responds, "Thanks guys, I do feel a lot better, hopefully they'll let me out of here soon, so I can get back to have good time together with you." "Hey Aya! Chan, you look pretty damn comfortable there. How long are you going laid up with Yama? Chan and sleep without worry doing nothing, but being with your dear friend?" Naruki responds with a sarcastic laugh. In an irritated tone, Aya says, "You shouldn't say that Naruto. Chan, we are not deadly sick. We actually shall get out of here tonight. I am happy getting out of here. Here I can't talk with anyone else but Yama. Chan." Yamaneko, who is next to her, tries to sound hurt and pouts while saying, "Oh my Aya. Chan," in a playful manner. "Didn't you like all that free time that we had all for ourselves? All that time alone and chance to bond more. We could have get reminder of all our time as wrestling tag team and how we practiced Toget." Red as a tomato, Aya yells, "Yama! Chan," as everyone else chuckles. Jokes aside, Aya and Yama get well quickly. Lord Sandame promised that when you are fully healed you can come in school with us and you can get apartment close to mine all for yourselves. You can do that bonding there without any interruptions during your free time as long as you want. Shikane adds. "We can also spar later. You must have got little rusty while sleeping here while Shikane and I have been training while we can," Naruki responds. As Yamaneko gets out of bed to go into Aya's room, she says confidently, "You wish. My strength is still the same I had during wrestler times, and Aya. Chan's Uezitan and mine Ititan are number 1. Together we two will beat you too. I know that we would lose to you. Nobody can beat you two while you're fighting as a tag," Shikane responds. Yamaneko put her arms around Aya's shoulders and said, "True. Together we two are unbeatable." This caused heat to radiate from Aya. Aya looks at her friends' faces and says abruptly, "Hey, by the way, how many survived from that attack? We forgot to ask about it from Anbu." When Aya and Yamaneko hear this, Naruki and Shikane look at each other right away and begin to look down, which worries them. "I'm sorry, but all survivors from the caravan are in this room." With a somber tone, Aya says, "Oh, I'm sorry about your clan members, Shikane. Sama, we should have done something. I'm sorry we let you down." Her speech revealed the impact it had on her. She only referred to Shikane as Shikane. Sama. in formal settings or during times of sadness. It brought back memories of her slave days for her friends. In response, Yamaneko became depressed as well and hugged Aya. Chikane says in a voice that crackles her calm expression, "We have talked about this. You're my friends and don't have to call me Sama. I'm just Chikane for you. Enemy that attacked was incredibly strong and you couldn't do a thing. I'm just glad my friends survived. You're too kind, Chikane. Sama, if we hadn't met you and Naruto, I and Yama-chan would still be slaves. I should have paid my debt for your clan by saving their members, even if it had been for cost of mine life." Aya's father was banished from the Mitsuaki clan because of his severe gambling addiction, which he had throughout his life. Even so, marriage and the birth of Aya didn't stop him from gambling, and one day he incurred enormous debt from the wrong person. When Aya was 12, the owner and manager of a sizable group of female wrestlers had discovered her father in a dilapidated apartment. When he was broke, he took Aya to pay off debt. To Aya's horror, a man secretly set up lesbian wrestling matches for people of all ages, and she had to compete in underwear if she wished to maintain her virginity. She would have to win over one of her highest paying male clients each time she lost. She didn't have to fight against women her own age until she was 18, and if she won her match, she didn't have to have sex. That was the only positive thing the man offered. She faced a girl from the Mitsuaki clan who was a little older than Aya and had been a professional wrestler for many years in her very first match. It was Yamaneko, or Wildcat as she was always referred to at the time. When she was a child, Iwa Shinobi killed her parents, and the shinobi who had abducted her later sold her to a wrestling manager. She was raised as a lesbian wrestler and later obtained Mitsuaki's training scrolls, which taught her how to fight like a shinobi from an early age. Yamaneko put Aya in suplex hold for a short while because she was unaware of her arrangement with her manager and had only noticed how adorable she was. Since it was inevitable and would at least be gentle in her hands, she made the decision to take Aya's virginity. Later on, Aya acknowledged that the experience had been extremely enjoyable. Unfortunately, Aya's virginity had not been taken by Wildcat. Aya was also the target of another lesbian wrestler. She was a woman who had worked in the wrestling industry for her entire life. She was referred to as the lesbian mistress, or mistress, by other girls in the group because of her tendencies, strength, and ability to use other female wrestlers as playthings. While patrons watched and applauded, she had stormed into the ring, grabbed Aya out of Wildcat's arms, and used her fingers and the heels of her shoes to steal Aya's virginity. Aya paid the price for her defeat. When the manager took her to the room where she was locked with a man known as Fat Bastard, she didn't have time to change. That man's name was a perfect fit. After the session, Aya sobbed almost uncontrollably in the room that was designated for her. Had Wildcat not visited her room after learning of the agreement she had reached with the manager, she would have been prepared to commit suicide that day. She expressed regret for not losing and pledged to teach Aya Mitsuaki fighting techniques and serve as her tag partner. Fights against opponents their own age were virtually guaranteed victories because of Wildcat's exceptional fighting skills. In addition, Wildcat's sex with Aya, which Aya really enjoyed, erased memories of Fat Bastard and Mistress. However, they never again met for another session. Since Yamaneko kept her word, Aya has not lost an official match and has therefore stopped having sex with anyone. When their group arrived in the city near Getsukuger nearly a year later, Naruki, who had joined the Himemiya clan as a servant, discovered them, and the three girls quickly became friends. Since lesbian wrestling was illegal, especially when it involved minors, Naruki assisted them in their escape, and the manager had no choice but to leave the nation. Without their Kekkei Genkei, elders would have expelled two former slaves. They were given some training scrolls, but the Mitsuaki clan did not want them back. With Naruto, girls were made servants and given to Chikane, who had no friends her own age. They eventually became the best of friends. Since this conversation had always been a source of friction in their friendship, Naruki and Chikane exchanged anxious glances. Yamaneko turned away from Aya, looking down in embarrassment. Even that sex session was seen by her as a way to satiate her sexual needs, according to the little voice in her head, and she had never been able to forgive herself for it. Perhaps it was an act of sympathy rather than love between the two girls. Yamaneko was fed up. Abruptly, she put her hands in Aya's and drew her into an embrace. With genuine concern resonating throughout her statement, Yamaneko makes her rely on her and says, "Please don't ever say something like that again. not for me. You're way more valuable to us than you think. Oh Aya, you're very fortunate to have found this girl. If she is who she says she is, everyone in Konoha will be vying for her in a few more years. Looking at them, Naruki thinks in private, you're so lucky, and I wish I could find someone like her. At that moment, a nurse enters the room pushing a cart loaded with medication and bandages. When it's time to tend to the girl's injuries, she says, but if guests would like, they can wait until it's finished and then return. That's all right, we have to be going anyway, and we'll come back again another time. Chikane responds. Nurse, might we have a few more minutes with the patients before you begin? There is something I need to talk to them about, says Naruki. As she exits the room, the nurse responds, just a few minutes please, I'll go and check on some of my other patients. Girls gazed at Naruki with curiosity as she made her way to bed. Actually, I also came here because some idea I had in mind. It concerns State Kunoichi's in Academy and I have talked with Hokage. Oji-san. Tomorrow when we go in Academy. On the morning of tomorrow, Ninja Academy the Hyuga. Clan heiress Hinata Hyuga entered the academy and observed her best friend Himeko Uchiha enter the building while glancing at the ground. Hinata ran over and yelled, "Hey Himeko!" Himeko stopped and grinned at Hinata. Himeko glanced up at her best friend and said softly, "Hinata, it's good to see you made it on time. Did you remember all of your school items?" Hinata said, "Of course I did Himeko-chan," with a shy tone. They paused to watch a different girl enter the school, her blue hair blowing in the breeze. The students all started talking excitedly to each other while grinning broadly at the girl. Himeko nodded slowly as Hinata whispered, "That's Chikane Himemiya, right?" She gave Chikane a fierce look while she was walking, and Chikane smiled back at her. As they listened to two girls discussing Chikane, Hinata laments, "I wish people would someday talk about me with the same way. Then I could do something about problems in my clan." Himemiya Chikane. Sama, the young heiress of a prestigious Himemiya family that has lasted who knows how long. She is smart and athletic, talented and beautiful. A perfect person with the extremity of summer, elegance of autumn, nobility of winter and kindness of spring. Countless amounts of proposals has been sent to her, all failing. She illuminates young Kunoichis. If there is someone who could possibly catch her, it's probably Prince of Konoha, Sasuke Uchiha. Noble, athletic, tragic and dreamy prodigy from great Uchiha clan. A top scorer in all tests in academy. I would want him for myself, but if Chikane Sama gets him, I don't think I would take it too badly. When Himeko heard them discussing her brother, she became depressed. Sasuke has begun to distance himself from her ever since that incident. Despite her deep love for Sasuke, she is unsure of how to handle him. A hand was placed on her shoulder by Hinata. Hinata smiled as they walked into the school and said, "Let's go to the park again today." Same location, slightly later. Someone was sprinting in their direction as they arrived at the gates. Naruki. Aya. Good morning Yane. A blonde wearing a black top over an orange shirt, gray shorts, and white boots said. 2 Mitsuakas were approaching from different directions when she turned around. Good morning Aya. Good morning Naruki. Aya said, turning to face Yamaneko, who was currently staring in the opposite direction. The older looking girl turned to face him and grinned upon seeing him, saying, "Gee. Good morning. Why Yane? Chan." Her cheerful voice made Aya smile broadly as she said, "Good morning." When her oldest friend was around, Naruki observed that she always became apprehensive and bashful. Additionally, Yane Chan always appeared content or calm when she gazed at the younger girl. Yamaneko approached Aya while observing. She quickly grabbed Aya's hand and dragged her through the gates while blushing. "Well, are we going to meet our teacher or what? Come on you two." Naruki smiled and followed. Indeed, since they became tag partners, Aya and Yamaneko had merely harbored a romantic interest in one another. However, they were afraid they didn't feel the same way, so they dared not speak. She rushed to the restrooms before responding, saying, I just need to go to the bathroom. Can you say that to the teacher?" She was about to turn a corner when she was run over. "Ouch, can't you look where?" But she trailed off after realizing her current predicament. She was lying on someone. And because her breast was directly in Naruki's face, she could tell it was a woman. Beside her, she noticed blue strands of hair falling down. The girl looked down at Naruki and heaved up with her hands. All of a sudden, time seemed to stop. In this person's eyes, looking up was like gazing into a nighttime full moon. She could still sense it, perhaps because her eyes were lavender and pale white. She wasn't alone, either. The shocked and startled girl on top of her was now staring directly at her. And for some reason, her heart skipped a beat as soon as she saw those blue eyes. Both of them experienced an increase in the volume of their heartbeats. Once again, the blue net landed on Naruki after slipping with her hands. Naruki's lips pressed together in a nervous laugh. "Well, I can definitely breathe. And this isn't awkward at all," she remarked cynically, her cheeks starting to flush. The girl blushed greatly and stammered, "I," before hastily standing up again. Naruki was able to sit up after she sat down on her knees. She repeatedly lowered her head while inhaling deeply. Naruki turned to face the girl once more and said, I'm so sorry." She was dressed in navy blue pants and a cream-colored hooded jacket with a fire symbol on the upper right and left sleeves and fur at the hem and cuffs. She was attractive now that she could see herself better. Her blush and stammering only served to enhance her adorable and naive appearance. Naruki pulled her legs away from the girl's sides while grinning. "It's okay. I should have looked where I was going." She stood up and gave the blue net a helping hand. She accepted the assistance with a whispered, "Thanks." As their hands touched, Naruki pulled the girl up, experiencing an odd sensation. Slanting her head, she examined the girl in front of her more closely. I haven't seen you around here before. Are you new or something?" Naruki grinned and replied, Yes, I started here today." "Oh, well then it's nice to meet you. I'm Naruki. Friends call me sometimes Naruto." Talking to a really attractive girl she didn't even know aside from her name made her nervous. My name is Hyuga Hinata. But most of the time addressed as Hinata. Despite not feeling as anxious as Hinata, Naruki experienced the same tension. I don't want to be rude, but I need to go talk with my teacher and..." After hearing that, Hinata quickly remembers the time and begins to apologize. "I'm so sorry, I didn't..." Naruki gets up and runs behind a corner, saying, "It's perfectly okay. I enjoyed talking with you and I wish we can talk more later. Bye then." In anticipation of Iruka, Sensei or Mizuki, Sensei arriving to begin class, the students sat in their seats. Because there are clan heirs, this class was notable. Nara Shikamaru is a bright but lazy child with pineapple hair. In actuality, he is the epitome of indolence. He has narrow brown eyes and fairly long jet black hair pulled back in a spiky ponytail. He is wearing brown pants, blue sandals, and a gray jacket with green edges and a green-lined mesh t-shirt underneath. Despite being a slacker most of the time, this high IQ makes up for it. Everything is a drag, in his opinion. Akamichi Choji is a fat boy who enjoys eating a lot. Barbecue in particular. Whatever is tasty, he will consume it. He has a strong build, swirl marks on his cheeks, and spiky brown hair. His outfit includes a white t-shirt with the kanji for food on the short sleeved jacket, brown shorts, a long white scarf, hoop earrings, and bandages on his forearms and legs. Additionally, if you call him fat, you're in serious trouble. A living bug nest is a boy named Aburame Shino. He is currently the tallest academy student in the class, with pale skin and dark bushy brown hair. He is wearing a green jacket with a high, upturned collar and dark sunglasses. He is a reserved person who only speaks when it is absolutely necessary. He has a good deal of knowledge and always acts and thinks logically. The self-described alpha of the leaf, Inuzuka Kiba, is never seen without his companion and pet, Akamaru. He has unkempt brown hair, sharp black eyes with pupils that resemble vertical slits, long nails, noticeable canine teeth, and cheeks marked with red fangs. He is dressed in a gray fur-lined coat with a hood that is typically worn on his head, blue sandals, and dark grayish pants that reach his calves. Although it isn't well known, he is actually quite stuck up and has a very negative opinion of women. He has a history of harassing Uchiha Himeko and Hyuga Hinata, but he has largely stopped with Himeko since their relationship infuriates her brother Uchiha Sasuke. Everyone that Sasuke disapproves of is prohibited from approaching Uchiha, and his fangirls, and a select few fanboys, despise anything that Sasuke finds objectionable. However, Kiba continues to harass Hinata. Hyuga Hinata is a charming and attractive girl who is quite mature for her age. She has fair skin, dark blue princess cut hair, and lavender tinted, white eyes without pupils. She was dressed in navy blue pants and a bulky cream colored hooded jacket with fur at the hem and cuffs. She possesses the Kekkei Genkei Baikaigen, just like every other Hyuga. The blonde gossip queen is Yamanaka Ino. She has green eyes, long blonde hair that is always pulled back in a ponytail, bangs that cover the right side of her face, and tiny silver hoop earrings. She has bandages on her legs and stomach, a skirt with the sides cut off, purple and white arm warmers, and a short purple blouse that resembles a vest with a raised collar. She takes her training very seriously, even though she is a fangirl. If only someone could persuade her to quit her obsessive dieting. In addition to not being a clan heir, Haruno Sakura is a banshee with the strongest set of lungs in Konoha history and no rack to grope. She has fair skin, green eyes, long, bright pink hair, and a rather large forehead. She is dressed in tight dark green shorts and a kipao dress with sleeves and white circular patterns that zips up. She dislikes Hinata because, in contrast to the other girls, she showed no interest in Sasuke. To have a crush on someone like her, you must be insane. One of the survivors of the Uchiha massacre is Uchiha Sasuke. Everyone else considers him a genius in his generation, and he is decked out in blue with the Uchiha crest. His eyes are onyx, and his hair is black with a hint of blue. He is wearing white arm warmers, white shorts, and a blue shirt with a raised collar and a Uchiha crest on the back. He is a pampered little jerk. He is only interested in gaining power, killing his older brother and sister, and finding possible mates in order to revive the Uchiha clan. The strong, in his opinion, prey on the weak. Despite his well-known achievements, he is merely a mediocre student who hasn't yet awakened the Sharingan. He is best described as a haughty jackass. Sasuke's sister, Uchiha Himeko, is another Uchiha massacre survivor. She is the only pleasant of the two Uchihas. Her eyes are violet and her hair is blonde. She resembles her mother, Uchiha Makoto, and is a good girl despite being a cursed Uchiha. She is essentially Hinata's only true friend and thinks that everyone is good on the inside. A girl called Yamato Nadeshiko sat in front of the class. She was without a doubt the strongest girl in her age group and, according to many Konoha veteran shinobi, the prettiest and strongest girl in her age group. Members of her large fan club come in all genders. In addition, she was one of the few girls in Konoha who had no feelings for Sasuke. Shikane, the heiress of the Himemiya clan, was the heir apparent to the Kyoton Kekkei Genkei. She was simply meditating while sitting quietly. She was generally quite cordial with Himeko and Hinata. "So, have you heard? Huh? There has been attack near village against caravan from Getshugakure and only survivors were 3 girls around our age." "Yes, I've heard rumors. I've also heard that one of girls has been in care of Chikane, Sama and Ino Yamanaka since then." That attack was the main topic of discussion in class. A Chunin instructor arrived a minute late, and he heard the class chatting and flinging paper airplanes around the room 5 minutes before the bell rang. He said, "Settle down, please," but no one listened. "Settle down," once more, but nobody listened. He yelled, "Quiet," as his head grew enormous. Immediately, everyone in the class fell silent and took their seats. "Thank you," he said as he moved behind his desk to the front of the class. "Hello, class." While some of them grunted indifferently, others were too preoccupied to look at the clouds outside the window, and 2 others were simply squabbling over a seat next to the black-haired boy who had grunted earlier. "Well, students, today we have 3 newcomers to the class. They moved here only some days ago, so be nice. Please, make them feel welcome." Upon entering the classroom, everyone simply paused and gazed. Not only did a stunning girl walk into the classroom, but 3 of them did as well. With the exception of a few blondes, this fact made Sasuke's fan club members anxious, and perverts began assessing them right away. One of them was a girl with short brown hair and eyes, a small, quiet frame, and breasts that were well developed. The second was a girl whose body belonged to an adult, not a teenage girl. Even though she didn't seem to care about the other girls in the class, her long red hair, long legs, hour class figure, and large breasts infuriated many of them. The one that received the most attention came in third. She had gorgeous blonde hair that reached well past her shoulders, a good hour. Class figure, and breasts that were developing nicely. 2. The air she excluded around herself, however, was even more striking. It gave the impression that she was a noble, well-mannered, and kind person who didn't mind getting her hands dirty. To put it briefly, she had the impression of an angel sent to help mortals in their hour of need. The fact that Sasuke appeared to be interested in these two newcomers also made the girls envious. Something disagreeable was stirring inside Ino as well. All of the boys in the class nearly melted in an instant, but Hinata's eyes were focused on the blue eyes that appeared to be grinning at her and her alone, not the body. Introduce yourselves, will you? The 14-year-old Naruki said, Okay, hi everybody. I'm Naruki, and I moved here only 3 days ago. I hope you'll take good care of me, thank you very much. Although she felt some girls watching her from behind, Naruki chose to ignore them. The only thing that all girls attempted to do was to ignore boys' lustful glances. She couldn't claim that it was a simple accomplishment, though. A boy was slouching and staring at Aya with hearts in his eyes when Yamaneko caught sight of him. Yamaneko was fed up. Protectively, she put her hand in Aya's shoulders. Before we take our seats, I have something to announce. Naruki responded. One of my concerns about future is present bad reputation of kunoichis. Therefore, with acceptance from Hokage Oji-sama, I wish to create something I have named Club of Kunoichis. Some eyebrows went up in response to this announcement. Club of Kunoichis is a group that gathers young female ninjas who are concerned about their future in shinobi forces. There, with help of others and some adult female ninjas, if we get them to visit us, we help them in this career and show them real way what kunoichis should take. We shall have some rules before you can join though. Members are, for example, forbidden to diet or care more about their appearance than getting stronger. Although we don't forbid falling in love, we don't like fangirls as we see them as a main reason behind bad reputation kunoichis have. Therefore, members of Uchiha Sasuke's fan club are forbidden from joining. Most girls were incensed by those rules, and protests broke out right away. Before they calmed down, Iruka had to employ his big head jutsu twice. We can talk about things more with those who wish to join. They can talk with already existing members about joining who right now are me, Aya, Chan, Yamaneko, Chan and Himemiya Chikane. We can also practice with boys who are willing and who we wish to train with. I wish here are some kunoichis who really care about reputation we have. That is all. Aya and Yamaneko then gave brief introductions as well. Iruka pointed to Hinata, whose face turned an intriguing shade of red, and said, Okay, we're glad to have you Naruki-san, Yamaneko-san, and Aya-san. You can have the seats left from Hinata over there. What was she meant to do now? When Naruki and her friends paused at her table, Hinata thought. Even though Hinata didn't want to, she did it anyway. Averting her gaze from the blonde's eyes while continuing to steal glances and not comprehending the abrupt increase in heart rate. Nice to see you again, Hinata. Chan. Why? Yeah. You too, Naruki. Naruki smiled and sat next to her, and if Hinata didn't know any better, she put her money on her being the center of attention. She leaned her head on the table, grinned awkwardly, and began to listen to Iruka. Sensei. Okay, let's start, shall we? And since it seems like you two know each other, why don't you show Naruki-san around after class, Hinata? Replied Iruka. She lowered her head onto the table once more as she looked up to nod. She wanted to turn to face Naruki, but doing so would make it too clear that she was happy. It was time to practice shinobi arts after 4 exhausting hours of pointless lectures. Naruki and her friends did exactly what was required to pass in both throwing and ninjutsu, or just a little bit better. Sasuke demonstrated his skills by using Kaden, Phoenix Flower Jutsu and throwing all-in targets during those 2 drills. Since only teachers, Shikamaru, and Shino saw how they were holding back, this led to insults from fangirls and Sasuke's fanboys. Yamaneko sent a burst ki, killing intent, at Sakura, who was leading those who insulted them, after noticing that only Aya felt bad about the insults. Sakura was unable to handle that little outburst, so she began insulting them behind their backs or in front of sizable crowds of people who were rooting for her. The practice of taijutsu followed these two. The pupils were led to a tiny ring where they were paired off to engage in taijutsu, only combat. While some students performed poorly, the majority did well. When Shikamaru faced Aya, He gave up the match. When Kiba resisted Yamaneko's advances, Yamaneko had the opportunity to put him in a wrestling hold, causing Kiba to scream in agony. Since Abarames are not renowned for their taijutsu prowess, Choji defeated Shino in their match. When Sakura and Hinata faced off, Hinata merely sidestepped Sakura's fist and tripped her, causing her to fall out of the arena. Pathetic. Ino defeated a random student in their match, and Shikane only had to move aside when her opponent charged, causing her to tumble out of the ring. Sasuke faced Naruki, while Himeko had a mediocre fight. While Shikamaru, Choji, and Shino cheered for Naruki, and Hinata and his other friends cheered for Sasuke. The majority of students and all of his fangirls cheered for Sasuke. Sasuke's superior smirk faltered as he gazed into Naruki's defiant eyes as the two faced off. But that didn't stop him from attempting to make fun of the girl. Sasuke scowled at the girl and asked, "So, you think you can win?" "Maybe, we shall see," said Naruki plainly. Sasuke said, "You shouldn't fight, for you are such a beauty," which infuriated a number of fangirls and hot-blooded men who were staring at one of the class's sexiest girls. Sasuke's words didn't even faze Naruki. "Flattery will get you nowhere, as my lack of interest in anything you say still means no." Sasuke vented his rage. "Why are you denying what is fate? Why are you denying the needs of your betters, an elite like me?" With disgust, Naruki responded, "I would rather burn in hell than submit to you. Try some others who are willing." The fangirls appeared prepared to murder Naruki. The final male Uchiha, also known as Sasuke, captivated the attention of girls who wanted to console him and ease his hurting heart. The girls stopped hovering when Sasuke snarled, "Shut up, I have no interest in a weak thing like them. I need to get stronger to avenge my clan. So they don't get near me, as they are useless. All of them should stay away unless they demonstrate that they are worthy of the Uchiha." However, girls continued to swoon over the final Uchiha in spite of his growl, which made Naruki and a few other girls ill. For someone who doesn't even like them, they discard everything. Naruki and her friends were more inclined to become kunoichis after seeing these girls. Instead of the girls in their class, they should be the ones who put in the hard work and grow stronger. Naruki simply stood there while Sasuke entered the customary Uchiha stand. Neither did anything for 2 minutes. Sasuke then lunged towards Naruki, preparing to strike her in the face. Naruki ducked easily. Sasuke attempted a kick once more, but she ducked. This pattern continued for several minutes, with Sasuke attempting to strike Naruki but she evading every single one of his blows. Naruki's friends observed that she moved with a lovely grace that only women can possess, making her movements resemble dancing. Hinata felt a warm sensation in her chest and was perplexed by those movements. Then Sasuke jumped because he was angry with Naruki. Sasuke smirked and kicked at Naruki after he charged again, but Naruki grabbed his leg with her right hand and slammed her fist into his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Naruki simply stood there staring down at Sasuke as he rolled over in agony and attempted to take deep breaths. Sasuke charged at her once more, his anger growing. Naruki was attempting to strike him because she was aware of how physically close they were. Sasuke was more powerful. But Naruki was faster, more resilient, and perhaps more agile. In order to slow down Sasuke's speed and hit him where it mattered most quickly while gradually wearing him out, Naruki used her slender arms and legs. Sasuke was unable to approach without getting struck. It became more and more clear as the altercation went on that he was becoming careless, more out of rage than fatigue. He became enraged and charged at Naruto like a bull, slamming his fists into her. Sasuke's right fist appeared to have struck Naruki's stomach as he charged, getting so close that there were only a few inches separating them. Before realizing that Naruki's face showed no signs of pain, fangirls were on the verge of cheering. However, Sasuke's had won. Sasuke's charge had thrown his stomach full force against the girl's knee, and Naruki had her knee up just an inch before his fist struck her in the stomach. After a few seconds, Sasuke passed out from pain as he slumped to the ground from Naruki's knee. So the last, loyal, male Uchiha is eating dirt. What has the world come to? Naruki laughed. When Sasuke was unable to hit Naruki, almost everyone in the audience was stunned. They were even more shocked when Naruki struck him, and they believed they were seeing things when Naruki knocked Sasuke out. After leaving the ring, Naruki dodged a fist that was aimed at her face and then slammed her own into her assailant's stomach, causing him to stoop in agony. There was only one person in the school with long, pink hair, and Naruki noticed this when she turned to face her assailant. Sakura. Sakura said angrily, How circa could you do that to Sasuke-kun? As she raised her gaze to Naruki. Naruki simply ignored her, and Hinata approached her to congratulate her and smile. Shikamaru, Choji, and Shino also approached to congratulate her on defeating the obstinate Uchiha bastard. In that group, Himeko was the only one who cared about her brother. The remainder of the day was uneventful. Everyone left when school ended, with the exception of Naruto and Hinata, who stayed a little while longer. After that, they left for their homes. Later in the evening, at the Himemiya residence in Konoha. To escape the outside world, Shikane was in the rose garden that had been created especially for her. The only place at school where she truly had some me time was here. The rose garden was only known to one other person. Himeko was that one individual. Shikane desired another visit with Himeko. She wanted to communicate with her in the same way that she and her friends do. Then there was a commotion in the shrubbery. Shikane had no idea who was going to show up. Himeko ruffles for 3 seconds before passing through the rose garden's tiny hole in the wall. As Shikane stared at the lovely ray of sunlight, her heart began to race against her chest. The sight of Chikane's blue eyes staring at her caused Himeko to flush. This scene reminded her of their first encounter. Rewind. Himeko was incredibly bored. Because she couldn't get Sharingan or have a child who could, she wasn't already as good at getting good grades as her brother. Himeko simply chose to forget about it during break by going for a walk. After about 20 minutes of walking, Himeko noticed a puppy exploring the area. The dog began to flee after glancing at Himeko. Himeko yelled, "Hey, wait, come back," and started running after the puppy. Himeko attempted to grasp the puppy, but it bobbed and wriggled. Himeko continued to chase after the puppy as it ran toward the affluent parts of Konoha. The puppy soon arrived at the stairs and bounded up them. Himeko hurried up the stairs in twos, following the puppy. After that, the puppy veered to the right and ran in the direction of some enormous houses. Himeko trailed the puppy. She watched as the puppy vanished into a flower-filled enclosure encircling a tall tree. Himeko trailed after the puppy as it slipped through the opening. She noticed a set of icy blue eyes staring at her when she looked up. Himeko's eyes became incredibly warm and gentle as soon as they met the blue ones. Himeko felt her heart pounding at 500 miles per hour. When the puppy turned around and rushed into her arms, he broke her trance. Shikane got up to prevent herself from dozing off while she was sitting in her flower garden. She was so exhausted that her legs wanted to give out, but she stood. Shikane began reflecting on her life's experiences in Konoha. Everyone else always thought she was flawless. However, Shikane was aware of how boring her previous life was. Shikane had no desire for anyone or anything. Before now, she had never given it much thought. Everyone simply accepted Shikane with ease. It seemed as though her brilliance was expected. It was merely a state of nature. Shikane's thoughts were interrupted when she heard rumbling coming from the bushes. Then a black puppy wearing a green collar emerged from a hole. A girl with 2 pigtails and golden hair emerged from the hole immediately after the puppy did. Her eyes had a stunning amethyst hue. Shikane's heartbeat accelerated. Not even Brandy was able to get her pulse to beat that quickly. Nervously, Himeko said, hi. Shikane said, hello, is that your puppy? Himeko held the puppy up to Shikane and said, no, I saw him running around when I went for a walk. Will you hold him for me? I got a little dirty chasing him around. Shikane responded flatly, still in awe of the attractive girl and her gifts, alright. Himeko began patting the dust from her clothes after giving the puppy to Shikane. The puppy was held near Shikane's face. The puppy licked her cheek and sniffed Shikane's face. The sound of the puppy's tongue tickling her face made Shikane laugh out loud. Himeko paused momentarily to gaze at the stunning blue-eyed beauty. The sound of her laugh astounded her. In Himeko's beautiful ears, it was like music. Shikane sat down, exhausted and laughing uncontrollably. The puppy leapt out of her grasp and attempted to flee, but Himeko swiftly caught him. Shikane was so exhausted that Himeko took a seat beside her. They sat in silence for 3 or 4 minutes. Shikane and Himeko both occasionally stole glances at the enigmatic blue-haired vixen. The awkward silence was finally broken by Chikane. Chikane inquired, "So, do you know where this puppy came from?" Himeko responded, "No, but he's wearing a collar. He's probably just lost." Chikane said, "You think so?" Himeko held the puppy at eye level and remarked, "I think this little guy lives somewhere around here." Himeko got up and said, "I think I'll ask around to see if I can find an owner, bye. When she got up, Chikane said, "Hold on a minute, let me see what I can find out. If he's from around here I can probably find the owner." Himeko said sweetly, "Really, that would be great. Who are you?" Chikane replied, "I'm Chikane Himemiya." Himeko grinned and said, "That's very generous of you, Chikane." Chikane thought aloud, "Chikane?" Other than her friends Getsukager, no one has ever mentioned Chikane's first name. Lady Himemiya, Oju, Sama, or, worst of all, Mia. Sama were always the culprits. Chikane is really irritated by that one. Chikane, however, wanted this one girl to repeat her name repeatedly because of the way she said it. She spoke her name with such tenderness and warmth. Confused, Himeko said, was I wrong?" Chikane responded, "No, it's nice to meet you." Himeko answered, "I'm Himeko, Uchiha Himeko." Himeko laughed when the puppy began to lick her face. The puppy was leading the way as Chikane and Himeko strolled alongside each other. Himeko continued to babble about her brother. Her presence diverted Chikane's attention, causing him to ignore her words. Himeko became aware of her tirade about Sasuke. Himeko apologized, saying, "I must be boring you to death." "I think your stories are fascinating." Chikane answered, "No, it's okay." "Really, that's the first time someone told me that. I just feel really strange today. I never really talk this much around people I just met. I'm usually shy." Himeko smiled. "I know I'm the same way. It's just that I rarely get to talk to someone like this, other than my best friend Hinata," Chikane said aloud. The puppy ran off and began splashing in a nearby puddle, but Himeko and Chikane were too preoccupied to notice it. Himeko could hear backing and splashing. The puppy was splashing in a puddle of mud when she turned around. Himeko and Chikane ran to join the puppy. The puppy then landed on them after shaking its fur. Chikane was taken aback and hurried to his feet. Himeko inquired, "Hey, are you alright, Chikane?" Chikane shot back, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm more worried about you." "Don't worry about me, I was already dirty. Let me help you out," Himeko replied. Taking out a handkerchief, Himeko began to wipe the dirt from Chikane's face. Chikane went cold. Himeko's touch was warm and gentle. When Himeko realized she was touching the world's softest face, she too froze. Then their trance was broken by a gust of wind. Chikane's vision was obscured by her bangs blowing into her face. After reaching into her pocket, Himeko took out a hairpin. As she secured the pin in Chikane's hair, Himeko remarked, "Hear out this on. The wind is pretty strong today." After Himeko touched him, Chikane blushed and said, Thanks." After 10 minutes or so, the puppy ran up to its mother when it saw her. Flashback end he said, Hi, again, Chikane." Himeko came all the way through the hole and said, "Hello, again." "What's wrong?" inquired Chikane. "Well, Chikane. Chan, you're always so very busy every day, yet why are you with me?" "Because this is about only time I am free to be with only you, should I not?" With a worried wave of her hands, Himeko said, "Of course you should. If it's a nuisance to you, I won't do it again." "No, it's not like that. I am very happy to. It's true. It's just Chikane. Chan is amazing. You can do well in everything. You can do everything, you're really like princess, so." Chikane turned her gaze to the clouds in the sky and said solemnly, "That's not true." The awkward silence between the two girls was brought on by those words. Chikane asked abruptly, "Well, what brings you here?" "Oh, I just wanted to see you, again, and I am quite interested about that club that Naruki spoke, and I think that Hinata Chan would also be interested." Himeko's tone faded away. "Alright. So, do you want to talk or something about joining? And as far as I know, Hinata is already talking about it with Naruki?" Chikane began. Himeko, who was sitting next to Chikane, replied, "Yeah, that sounds nice." Shikane sat down where she had been standing. After an awkward pause of 30 seconds, Himeko initiated the conversation. They discussed how she got to know Yane, Naruto, and Aya. They discussed their pre-school experiences as well as their plans for the club of Kunoichis. Even Shikane was acting like herself when she spoke to Himeko, similar to what best friends do. Until it was time for Himeko to return home, they sat and chatted. They both left the rose garden as the sun began to set. Shikane inquired, "So, you want to do this again tomorrow?" Himeko replied, "Yes. I would like that very much." As they parted ways, Shikane said, "I'll see you later."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.